MTG and me, this is Charles, and if you're anything like me, you've been clamoring the last few weeks to get any sort of glimpse or hint as to what Guilds of Ravnica is bringing us. And we've had little nuggets, little snippets sort of trickle out. I mean, there was a spoiled card in Spanish a few weeks back. There's been some key art released for Vraska, and then today on Reddit, I noticed somebody had posted the Pro Tour Top 16 playmat with a new set of Vraska art, and there's a lot of interesting speculation about what that art is for. But before we get into that, I just wanted to touch base a little bit on the Guilds of Ravnica spoiler season and how things might be a little bit different than we're used to in a normal set. Namely because Wizards made an announcement back in July, at the end of July, to say that the format for the 2018 World Championship was going to be team sealed with Guilds of Ravnica. And this is really interesting because in order to accommodate this, they're actually going to release a complete visual spoiler of the set on Wednesday, September 19th, rather than the traditional Friday before the pre-release weekend. So this means, like, I think we're going to start getting some more spoilers sooner rather than later, but again, this is something to watch for sure. From a team series and world championship perspective, it's pretty interesting. It's not going to give the professional players a whole lot of time to interact with the cards to get a good understanding of the potential interactions that these new cards bring to it, and hopefully it's going to be an interesting event as a result. So now going back to the core thing I wanted to talk about, it's that key art from the new Vraska playmat that's showing up on Reddit. Back in July, WPN posted what looks like some sort of key art, shows Vraska petting some sort of like little, I don't know, creature of sorts down in the Golgari underworld of Ravnica. And the look and feel of the art's really that it's going to be used for like artwork for the guild boxes or something like that. But the playmat that we saw today is a little bit different. I think the consensus on Reddit, at least, is Vraska. She's surrounded by what look like elves, potentially fairies, maybe some sapperling or plant type creatures. And the stance is pretty interesting because with her grouped around other individuals like that, people have been making some comparisons to other key artwork we've seen in the past. Notably, that it potentially indicates or hints to a guild cycle of cards that we might see. And the two most popular ones at this point, given that the Ravnica guilds previously seen their own cycle of charms, is the Ascendancy cycle from Khans of Tarkir and the Command cycle from Dragons of Tarkir. First, let's look at the Command cycle from Dragons of Tarkir. So in this cycle, we've got 5 cards total for each of the 5 clans of Tarkir. We've got a Tarkus Command, Dromoka, Kolokan, Ojutai, and Silumgar. So if we look at the Vraska art, it's reasonably similar to something like Dromoka's Command or Ojutai's Command. Less so to the other 3. I think the key difference, though, is that the one with Vraska is a very static sort of scene. Like there's some very specific sort of contemplation going on or something like that. Like there's a meeting. The only real hint of any sort of action is this weird sapperling type creature thing snarling at the front or whatever it is, a reanimated creature. And we see the city of Ravnica in the background and storms brewing in that. But otherwise it's a very static scene, and this is sort of contraindicated with what we're seeing in the Command cycle, which shows a lot of combat and charging, and Dromoka's Command again looks a little bit more standoffish, like defensive in nature, which matches sort of the flavor of the card and the functions. But we do see the dragon there soaring overhead. Now if we take a look at the Ascendancy cycle, this is maybe a lot more evocative or reminiscent of or comparable to the artwork we're seeing with Vraska. Although they're a little bit more off in the distance. But the Vraska artwork is very up forward and represents sort of a close, intimate connection. All of these are sort of standoffish and this is stepped back. The scenery is sort of key. They're presented in sort of the same way. But if you look at the Ascendancies versus the Commands, I think generally speaking, the artwork of the new playmat is more similar to the Ascendancy cycle than the Command cycle. Now, whether or not the characteristics of the artwork are what definitively identifies one cycle versus the other, or perhaps this is a standalone artwork or represents a new cycle of cards, that remains to be seen. Notwithstanding that, there is some interesting speculation on what a card could potentially look like based on that artwork and the strengths of the Golgari guild. So for example, somebody suggested on Reddit a poster, Harbear 6, that a Golgari Ascendancy might be something that's a black-green enchantment that says whenever a non-token creature you control dies, you may put the top 3 cards of your library into your graveyard. And whenever a creature is put into your graveyard from your library, you may exile it, and if you do, create a Saproling creature. Someone else suggested a plant creature. Now, to be clear, these are not spoilers of the actual card, but it seems like a reasonable strength card and sort of captures that essence of Golgari as a guild at a reasonable cost and would likely see play. Similarly, I saw someone post something, a user by the name of Sick Burn Bro, suggesting Golgari Command might be a black-green instant modular spell where you choose 2. Put the top 5 cards of your library into your graveyard, return a creature from graveyard to hand, destroy target enchantment, or create 2 0/1 green plant creature tokens. Both of these are pretty interesting and flexible enough that they would see some play. So in the end, I think what everyone's hoping for is twofold. One, that spoiler season starts relatively soon and we can stop speculating on what these cards do. And 2, that either one of these cycles would be incredibly well received, although the community tends to lean towards an Ascendancy cycle versus introducing a command cycle, which is similar in a lot of ways to the Charm cycle. Alright, well that's all I have, a little bit of speculation on the Guilds of Ravnica spoilers, as they may be called. If you have any comments or suggestions or ideas even for where this might be going and whether the artwork actually represents anything, I'd love to hear them. Feel free to leave a comment below and we can discuss it further. As always, thanks for liking, commenting, and subscribing, and thanks for watching.